I'm here with my sister, Emily Guy Birkin. She does not use a hyphen.
And I'm here with my sister, Tracie Guy Decker, who does use a hyphen.
And together, this is Lightbringers, where we illuminate the deeper meaning of the Crime Solving Devil TV show. And yes, we're overthinking it.
So much overthinking.
Yeah. So we're chugging along in season 3. Today we're going to talk about 303 and 304, Mr. and Mrs. Mazikeen Smith, and What Would Lucifer Do?
So I will sometimes come back to Mr. and Mrs. Mazikeen Smith because it's a pretty entertaining episode. I don't often come back to What Would Lucifer Do, although that final scene where he's telling the story of one of his subjects in hell is amazing, and I have watched that multiple times.
It's so cruel, though. He's so cruel to Amenadiel in that scene.
Well, and that's the thing, like watching that scene and like the sharpness of the cruelty and the details of how he tells that story is just it's just amazing. It's amazing acting. I'm just in awe of how that scene goes down.
Let's start with Mr. and Mrs. Mazikeen Smith.
Yeah, and so there I do want to tell you, for both of these, I actually want to kind of dive in a little bit into and I know I talk about story construction a lot, but the like the guts of how these are made, and in particular with, well, in both of them there's something specific. So the Smiths is an episode that was originally supposed to be for season 2.
Oh,
I think it was filmed during season 2, and then for whatever reason, I don't remember, like there was weirdness, it got moved to season 3. So that is part of the reason why I think the next episode feels a little jarring, because episodes 1 and 2 see Lucifer starting to have this crisis because he's changing. Then Mr. and Mrs. Mazikeen Smith, he's not, the protagonist of that episode, but he seems, he's doing fine. And then the 4th episode, all of a sudden he's back to that. And we end with that stunning cruelty to his brother. And it just like, wait, what happened? Why? And I think that's because of where it was. Now, the other thing about this episode is Leslie Ann Brandt was pregnant.
I read that
during this episode.
Really hard for her.
And the reason why she's not in the first 2 episodes, like when he's like, she's off bounty hunting, those were filmed afterwards and she was on maternity leave. So this was filmed beforehand and she was pregnant. And so I don't know like how far in advance they write these or what, but story construction wise, I want to talk about how well they work around the fact that she's pregnant, because it's set in Canada in the winter when it's normally a Los Angeles show. And like, it's also, I mean, Leslie Ann Brandt is a goddess, and like, I wish I looked like how she looks at whatever, like 4 or 5 months pregnant, like showing. I wish I looked like that normally. So some of it is that, but then there's also the way that they wrote the story within those constraints, and we're still character driven. So within those constraints of, like she's in Canada, like we want her bounty hunting. We want this to be a Maze centric episode. We want it to be about, she's her chosen family, all of that. We are going to need her to be able to fight, which is tough. Like the choreography is amazing. I don't know how they did that when she was so pregnant. And we want her to have backup from the main cast because she's not there. And so like my imagining is that the writer's room is like, okay, how are we going to, like, they probably had the idea for the Mr. and Mrs. Mazikeen Smith, and like, it was going to be, she was bounty hunting someone. So they probably had that idea, is my guess. And then Leslie Ann Brandt is pregnant, and they're like, oh, okay, that's going to make it tougher. And yet they still managed to make everything character driven. So like they had it that, like the Ben Rivers is a character we're just introduced to, but the fact that he's on the run, like if he's going to be in this, you know, super like posh ski resort in Canada, that fits. Then they want someone from the main cast to be there, and so they get Dan there, and that also fits because he uses points to be able to go on his vacation. Like they wrote it in a way that it is like you can see the writer's hand at work.
Yeah. But it's not implausible.
It's not implausible.
Yeah,
it is
they're not jumping a shark.
Yeah, exactly. So like, how did you end up here? No, it really fits like between what we know about Dan, like what we know about his finances, what we know about how he tries to live his life, what we know about Chloe and the way she would respond. So all of that. I'm really impressed by that. And it kind of goes to show that in some ways, creating tighter boundaries on your creativity gives you more freedom in some ways. So like they had to do, so like if you say like just write a story, it's just like where we say
I don't disagree that you can get better outcomes. I disagree that it's more freedom. I think it's just it puts guardrails so that you actually can move forward rather than just like, bleh.
Well, I see that moving forward is more freedom. Like, right, like that paralysis is, it may not be external boundaries, but that paralysis when you have too many choices is not freedom.
I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Semantics.
Well, it's just, you know, like there's ways you look at the world that's different from ways I look at the world. So that I just wanted to like appreciation for that. It's like, well done, writers. Well done. They also managed to make it not feel like it was shoehorned into Canada. You know, like they lean into it, and like the guy that she
Norm
blackmails. Yeah, Norm.
You're a real bee.
So, but he feels like, I mean, it's just, you feel for him.
He's a total caricature, but
yeah,
I mean, you know, it's the Crime Solving Double TV show, so it's okay.
Yeah. But it's a fun, reasonable caricature.
It was fun.
It's like,
definitely fun.
It's like they're like, if we're gonna be doing this, let's do some local color, you know. So I really appreciated what they were able to do with that.
Yeah, I like seeing Maze again. I didn't realize that Leslie Ann had been on maternity leave in the previous two episodes. So, but yeah, I definitely like noticed her absence. And then this was very Maze centered. It was almost like we had to like compensate for missing her.
Refill the well.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, that I sort of like, I also thought it was interesting the distinction between physical danger and emotional danger that is made in Mr. and Mrs. Mazikeen Smith that is totally lost on Lucifer, which makes sense that it's lost on him because he is so emotionally immature. I thought that was a, you know, an interesting distinction, again, sort of thinking about dramatic irony in a different, it's a like a twist a little bit, but insofar as like those of us watching who, you know, are adults moving through the world and recognize that, you know, there's a lot more going on than just the physical, versus, you know, Lucifer, like it's Maze. She can handle anything.
She'll be fine. Yeah.
You know, and Chloe, like, yeah, you don't get it, you know, and he really didn't get it. So I thought
until he saw her fluff his pillow and he broke my maze.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. The other subtle thing that I don't, maybe she has, well, I guess with the Britneys, but the Maze's bisexuality is on full display in this episode as well, which is always sort of titillating.
But also, yes, it's titillating, but it's also nice to have some representation.
Yeah,
it is like the fact that it just that is, and it isn't unremarked upon by anyone.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have to say so the first few times I saw this, I like the actor playing Ben Rivers, and I think he does a great job. Like you can understand how he's able to con people, even just in that first interaction where he switches the handcuffs to her. But I had a similar reaction as Lucifer the first time. I was like, you're only mildly handsome. This time around, I don't know, something switched. I'm like, oh no, I see it. I can see it. I can see it.
That's funny. That's funny.
So, and it's interesting also because Ben Rivers occupies a place similar to that of Lucifer in that he is a little bit like walking heroin to all these women he's conning. So I'm thinking like specifically his attorney. Yeah, because she knows better. And she's a knockout. So it's not like she's lacking for suitors, like suitors probably. But so, and that I think is also interesting, that the person to break Maze is similar to Lucifer in some ways.
Yeah. Also that she was hunting him, but then she needed to sort of protect him. Also that the protection piece of it, I think, especially like related to our last conversation, about like sort of
wrapping yourself around him like a blanket.
Yes. So but Maze's relationship with Lucifer was that of protection for so long. So that's an interesting parallel that I didn't think of until you just made that connection.
Yeah. I do want to talk real quick about Trixie.
Okay.
Just an appreciation for how they have developed the relationship between Trixie and Maze. So like the, stowing away, that's a very old joke.
Yeah.
Anytime there's a giant suitcase and there's a child involved, child's in the suitcase. But, well, no, I can't let her go alone. She needs backup. And then like Knuckles and the whole
Knuckles, whatever. And
and the fact that she sent Ms. Alien with her. Every time I've seen this, have been like, I appreciate the it got a little dirty. Like, is that blood? Cool. Like, I appreciate the humor of that, and yet I'm still at the do not let that child touch that. Keep it clean. And I never considered myself much of a germaphobe, but I'm just like, ew. You don't know where Ben Rivers has been. Do not let him touch that. But I also really I appreciate that he wakes up clutching Ms. Alien.
Yeah.
So we also have a return of someone eating Dan's pudding.
Yep.
It was labeled. And the other piece is Chloe's competence as a detective, her spidey sense that something was off about Herrera, which I like. Just watching it doesn't, it all seems like a reasonable thing. He's got so much plausible deniability in everything that he's asking, but she's like, there's something not right about this.
Yeah. And then we see that spooky file at the end, which no spoilers, but that's one of those dropping a mystery for us to puzzle over moving forward. So,
well, and that is another aspect that they had to add to put it in the third season to make this make sense.
Fit where it landed. Yeah.
So because it is a show that doesn't have any Monster of the Week episodes.
Right.
So and that's I mean, well, we'll get to some later that were similar, like bonus season 2 that got put in season 3 episodes, and they are kind of like Monster of the Week in that they're unconnected. The end of season 3, you know, the
very end, those two bonus episodes. Yeah.
But that's a part that feels forced to me.
Even once it's revealed, it feels forced.
Yes,
agreed.
Well, it felt more forced once it was revealed.
Yeah, agreed. All right, well, let's get to that when we get to it.
Yes.
So in What Would Lucifer Do? As you know, we're back on the, you know, Lucifer sort of falling apart, growing, evolving, not sure where he is and who he is. And he is back to being like just a complete dick in this episode. Like, I feel like there was some growth, and you started to sort of see like what Chloe sees in him besides, you know, the eye candy.
What we all see in him.
But then in this episode, like, you know, like with all the kids like working on the pot, and he's like, snitches get stitches, and they all repeat it. And
he says, and this is not the first time he's done this, he says snitches end up in ditches. I'm like, that's not the phrase. The phrase is snitches get stitches. Snitches end up in ditches it's like the iambic pentameter, I don't know, whatever, the rhythm is wrong. Like, it's all off.
I wonder if that's been trademarked.
Like, you're on the 1 and 3, not the 2 and 4.
I wonder if it's been trademarked and they'd owe royalties if they said it.
I don't know, but I'm like, why? It's right there. Snitches get stitches. So that's my mini rant. That scene and how dickish he is one of the reasons why I don't like returning to this episode. Because it feels a little too much, and I wonder if this episode had come immediately after episode 2, rather than having Mr. and Mrs. Mazikeen Smith in between, if I could have accepted that's like
continued arc.
Yeah,
from the him, like,
we when see he's him like spiral into awfulness before. And I've followed him there, but this one I'm just like, what are you doing? This is not okay. With the exception of the moment Chloe comes in, it's just like, I can't remember if she said, where did you get that horse, or get off that horse? And he goes, what horse? It's me up every time.
You know, I saw one of the like casts, they got together and they were like, did you see that one? The interview one where they said, did you ever like lie to get a part? And Ellis said he lied about being able to ride a horse.
It was for like when he was a very young actor.
Right. Not
like,
right.
Early
acting career.
So he learned it for that part.
Right.
Yeah.
So yes, total dick. Interesting too, the seeing him like turn things around with the cuckolded husband. So that like that was, I think that was meant for us to see sort of the supernatural cast to his what do you desire power, because it requires a supernatural explanation for that exchange to go down the way that it did. You know, I mean, not at least after a certain point. I feel like you know, when he had the golf club and then he does the mojo and he's like, I'm exhausted. Like all of that I believed. But then he was like, when he was like, well, here's what I'll do for you. You know, I'll keep your wife sexually satisfied.
Because this guy's he's a judge, which I mean, as we have seen, does not necessarily equate high intelligence, but one would expect. He had to have gotten through law school.
It wasn't that he seemed duped though.
Yeah,
I think that's why it felt a little
That's why it feels weird. Yeah.
It didn't seem like he felt duped. It seemed like he was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good deal. Which which is why I say like it maybe it was meant to sort of show us that there is like this supernatural ability to be liked or to kind of, which I feel like we see later in other places, like the bonus episode, one of the bonus episodes that you're talking about, we see where like folks who shouldn't like him like him. So I don't know, but anyway, that moment kind of stood out for me.
Yeah, every single time that I have seen this, I have felt outraged on Marsha's behalf, the judge's ex-wife, in that he says like, oh, like I miss Marsha because she stimulated me intellectually and like, you know, like it was great for a while, you know, it was party all the time, all the sex, have you seen her body? But you know, I want to nap and I want to play cards with Marsha. And it's like, what does Marsha want?
Yeah.
Like, why did you get to decide to blow up your marriage? And now you get to say, you know what? I'm going to come back.
Yeah.
And like, not that like, it's such a throwaway moment. And, you know nothing about their past, their relationship, you know, nothing. She might've been like, hey, go sow your wild oats. Never did. We got married at 22. Go sow your wild oats. I don't care. Like I'm exhausted. I don't want to have sex anymore anyway. So go do that. I'll be here if you want to come back. Like who knows? That might've been how it went down. But I remember thinking like the very first time and particularly because you come back and meet her. I just remember thinking like, why is she okay with this? And this is icky and ew. So that's another reason why this episode doesn't really resonate with me. Now I want to talk about story construction in terms of this episode, and I'm going to have to talk about spoilers.
Okay. I mean, we've spoiled before. So.
We've spoiled before, but this is going to be big spoilers. So now the thing that I think is interesting about this episode is they wrote it so that it does not make sense on first viewing and makes perfect sense once you know that.
Because of Pierce?
Pierce is Sinnerman. Because you have to put it together, but Pierce is at the top of that grow distribution.
Oh.
So because, and he went with Chloe and he was, you know, manipulating so that he could be in a position to get shot while standing next to Chloe in the hopes that it would kill him. And so that means he's on the phone. He's on the phone when he and Chloe are walking. I think he's texting. I can't remember if he's texting or if he's just getting off a call when they're walking up to the ranch to apprehend the head of the camp. And after you've seen the whole season and you come back and watch that, you realize he's saying like, we're here for you. And he's doing that to spur him into shooting him. If Pierce were actually just a lieutenant, had nothing to do with any of it, it looks like sloppy writing. Like, why is this guy like coming out guns blazing against the police? Why, you know, what is he doing? Why is he like running the way that he is? And it only makes sense in context that Pierce tipped him off and he's terrified of Sinnerman. And it only makes sense that Pierce is doing this for his own ends, which is like the opposite of what you'd think it would be, just to try to get himself killed. So, and then like the conversations he has with Chloe, which are partially setting up the love triangle that comes later, but there's something special about you.
Right. Even the way he says, I see why Lucifer is affected by you.
Yes, exactly. So there is a part of me that feels like bravo for doing all of that and putting out an episode that on first watch, most people are going to be like, this doesn't really make sense. And then only that rewards rewatching. I like I think that is kind of cool when it's done really well. It's it doesn't look weird on first watching. It makes total sense on first watching. And then and then it's like, oh, whoa, there's turtles all the way down once you watch it again. And I have wondered, you know, what the constraints were that led to this episode being like so imperfect for the first watch. And like, I'm not expecting perfection or anything like that. And I think the shuffling with the 4 episodes from season 2 didn't help. You know, having Mr. and Mrs. Mazikeen Smith right before this didn't help. Tom Welling didn't really help. Sorry, Tom. I'm sure you're a really sweet guy. So and there are some moments that are pretty cool in this that he does. I just don't think he's at the caliber of Ellis. So anyway, and this reminds me a little bit of the show How I Met Your Mother. Did you ever watch that?
I did in the beginning, and then I got like annoyed because it just kept going. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like I just got bored after like 4 seasons.
I got invested and watched to the bitter end. And at the end, and what the showrunners were doing was they wanted it to all along be that the mother was dead and that he was telling the story in part because he wanted to try again with Robin. And so if it weren't television as a medium, I think that could have been really cool, because if they had control over how many seasons they had, the problem was they got 9 seasons, and they don't actually introduce, I mean, like they have the actress playing the mother throughout the 9th season, and she's the only thing worth watching in that 9th season. But they got 9 seasons. They don't introduce the mother until like 5 minutes before the end. Like you don't find out her name until 5 minutes before the end, and you don't see them meet until 5 minutes before the end. And then they end it with the same image they started with him with the blue French horn over his head, asking to be let into the apartment. And I see what they were trying to do. They had a vision from the beginning, and they fulfilled it. I respect that, but I think that they sacrificed good television for this vision, because by the time they got 9 seasons, that ending didn't make sense anymore, in part because we have 9 years worth of evidence that he and Robin should not be together.
I think
like 9 years that show they're a horrible couple.
I think there's something that makes me think about the way that like the way Brits will make TV, and they like say like it's this many shows, like, and maybe that's a thing that, you know, when it's something like How I Met Your Mother, that's the way we should go. Like here's the arc, that's it, you know, and then we don't make anymore because the story's over. Or like Fleabag, you know, like it was 2 seasons. She told the story she wanted to tell, and then she stopped making it. Not that I wouldn't have watched more episodes of Fleabag. I totally would. Phoebe, please. But I respect the fact that she said like, no, this is the story that I want to tell. That story's over. And Americans, and driven by the almighty dollar, we don't do that. As long as we can sell another episode, we will make another episode, you know, which is, well, it just is what it is, I guess.
Well, it's how you get characters who are ugly caricatures of who they were at the beginning, because whatever the quirks were in the pilot, they've got to keep turning and turning and turning and turning up the dial.
You know, Michael Schur writes about that in How to Be Perfect, which is awesome. You should read it. But I can't remember the name of it, but it's like, it's got a name. They call it like the window. It's like the window of plausibility. And like the more as you move into the window, then the actual edges shift. And he talked about how in The Office, they were constantly talking about making sure they didn't make Michael too much of a buffoon. Because like that's what happened to Homer Simpson, where in the beginning of The Simpsons, he was like not bright, but not like a complete doofus, but they just kept pushing and pushing and pushing.
Yeah.
Until, you know, 20 years later. And as you say, it was just a caricature of the original character, which it's literally a character. I mean, it's a cartoon character. And so for Homer Simpson, like, but if you're making television that's character driven, that's meant to have some actual ethos and pathos, you have to really watch that. Michael Schur wrote about that. I had never thought about it that way, but it makes total sense once it was sort of drawn out and articulated.
And that's one of the reasons why I so appreciate The Good Place, and the fact that he said 4 seasons done. And like it's, you end up breaking your own rules. You end up pushing your characters to places where they wouldn't actually go. Just to go for the joke. And something that I hate about ensembles is that if they go on long enough, they end up being super incestuous.
Like everybody has slept with
everybody else because they need to constantly go for the, like, what about this shipping pair? What about this shipping pair? So to bring it back to Lucifer, I feel like what happened with What Would Lucifer Do was they were letting the tail wag the dog. I think that it's cool that they did it, just because you don't know what you get when it comes to TV. You don't know how many seasons you're going to get. You don't know, if you're going to be canceled mid-season. You don't know what this is. And so they're trying to, like, the creative challenges are unreal. And so I appreciate when I can tell that they are trying to think ahead. And I think there are times when they do it and it is perfect. Like the first time he is emotionally vulnerable with Chloe is the same episode where he's physically vulnerable with her. I appreciate it when it's done well.
I just noticed the time and I have another meeting. So we need to wrap up.
Okay. All right.
So I just have fluff that we've had before, which is Ellis's eyeliner. Yeah, like somebody wasn't paying attention because I think it's Mr. and Mrs. Mazikeen Smith. Like one eye's like kind of like smudged underneath, like on the lid. Like it just wasn't as it wasn't as heavy as in season 2, but it also wasn't as like clean. So that's my fluffy thing.
So fluff for me, I don't know if I have any fluff for these two other than what I've already said, like Ben Rivers is mildly.
I think the other piece of fluff is the music when Amenadiel comes out in Lucifer's suit. And it's the lyrics are about how I just got paid and I'm going to spend it on chocolate.
Yes.
So wrong.
That is so right. Perfect. Oh my God. And the way Amenadiel wears that suit, which I don't understand how he and Lucifer would be the same.
I don't think they would.
But whatever, angels. And the musical cue, this is less fluffy, but the musical cue at the end after he has been so cruel to Amenadiel is also spot on.
What was it? I don't remember.
I don't remember the song but it just the mood and the lyrics really fit. And that was really, really well done. And I appreciate it again when they do like good music matched with what we're watching.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't actually feel like we overthunk it, but I gotta go.
You gotta go. So we left some thunks under thunk.
Some things left to thunk.
Yeah, we've got some things left to thunk. We have under thunk all of our thinks.
All right. See you next week.
Dr. Seuss. See you next week.